Hello, this is Butch Ramick, and I would like to welcome you to episode 1 of Around the Fire Pit. I call it Around the Fire Pit because that's where I have a lot of my most intimate conversations with my friends, intimate conversations with God, and it just seems that that's the way things happen. So this is going to kind of be a little bit of an autobiographical episode. Believe me, it won't be long, but I just want to give you a little bit of history of me and my life. Born and raised in California in 1959, so I am 66 years old and not as spry or as agile or mobile as I used to be, but I still tend to uh, think. My brain still works, and whatever information I have in there, I'll share it with you. And some of it's probably hopefully it'll be meaningful to you as it is to me. I was brought up in a missionary Baptist church, very strict, very rigid, and when I was very young, I enjoyed it. It was great. As I got older, I realized that I wasn't being taught I was being taught to fear God. I was being taught that my salvation was keeping me from hell, not getting me to heaven, but keeping me from going to hell. And it was a fire and brimstone church, yelling and screaming from the pastor, which at that time, that's all I knew. So uh, it was okay. But as I got older, it started to rub me the wrong way, I guess you could say. I, I wasn't. Being taught to fear God wasn't what I really was looking for. So I kind of strayed in and out. I wasn't, as I got into my teen years, I wasn't exactly uh, the cowboy in the white hat. I was a little bit of I guess you could say I was a little bit of a hoodlum. I'm not a bad hoodlum, but, I experimented with marijuana a lot. That was my weekend getaway, was smoking pot with my friends and just hanging out. And yeah, that's I drank, I smoked pot, and it was was my life. A lot of it was peer pressure back then, but then I got to really enjoy it. So as I got older, I strayed away from that. I mean, by the time I was, I'd say 20 years old, I quit smoking pot altogether. Maybe a little older than that, maybe 22, something like that. Uh, so I was not really going to church at that time because the churches that I was familiar with, the ones my mother and father went to, were that same missionary Baptist fire and brimstone, do good or go to hell type of church. And so I wasn't interested in that too much. Uh, my main interest in my teen years was girls. I loved girls. I still love girls. I still love a girl, let me put it that way. But, I discovered that I could get my attention with girls. And, I wasn't, back then I wasn't old, bald, and fat like I am today. But I wasn't, I don't think I was Casanova. I mean, they weren't chasing me down the street, but I didn't have a problem getting a date every once in a while. And so that was my thing. So, and I actually was in a relationship, a long-term relationship that ended, and I was kind of lost because I believe it or not, when I got into a relationship, I put everything into it. And so I was kind of lost at that time. And my sister said, let's go to nursing school. So I said, I have nothing better to do. Let's do it. So back then, we had to take about 18 months of prerequisites before we got into the nursing program. So we did all that. And my sister, I guess about 6 weeks before we started the program, she came up to me and she goes, I'm pregnant. I said, okay. So she had to quit, and I said, I got nothing better to do. And I went to the first class. There was 100 students, 93 girls. 7 guys. 3 of the 7 guys were gay. So I figured my odds are pretty good. So I stuck it out and, of course, got wrapped up in another relationship that I probably shouldn't have. But it was, again, another relationship I put everything into. So anyway, moving on from there, graduated from nursing school, took the boards, failed. And I said, that's enough. I don't even want to be a nurse. I really don't. So I was working at a hospital then. I kept working in the hospital as I was doing what I was doing. And then I met, actually, a good friend of mine. I was good friends with the Basses. The Basses had, I think, 5 sons, 4 or 5 sons. I can't even keep track. And one of their sons was married to, or had a girl, married to a girl named Irma. Now, Irma was a little off, I have to admit. And she said she worked at the same facility that I did. And she said, there's this girl that wants to meet you. I said, oh, really? Who? And she goes, her name is Susan, and she has golden hair. And first I'm thinking, going, golden hair? That's pretty odd. Anyway, long story short, about 40 years later, we're still together. Been married 38 years. Love of my life. And yeah, 2 beautiful sons. So that's my life really started at 40. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. My life began at 40, but the good things that happened to me before 40 were my wife and my 2 sons. At 40, my wife and I struggled finding a church that we were comfortable in. And then one day she called me at work. I worked in materials management in healthcare. And she goes, the teacher at Corey's school cut her fingers and she needs some bandages and stuff. Can you bring it home? I said, sure. So I brought it home and I met Debbie Vanderbaan, who was a teacher and a wife of a pastor in Lakewood. And my first thought was, uh-oh, what am I getting myself into here? But then I met Tim, and we didn't really hit it off super at first, but we got to the point to where we did. He's not only my pastor and my good friend, I consider him a brother, not only in Christ, but a brother in blood, I guess you could say. And he knew my story. I told him my story. He knew where I came from, and he knew the struggles I had with my relationship with God. So he gave me a book called Wild at Heart, which I read, and it kind of changed my life. The book by John Eldridge, excuse me, let me give John his credits, because it's a phenomenal book that changes the lives of most of the people who read it. And it's where I discovered that God loved me, and he didn't want me to be afraid. He didn't want me to fear him. He wanted me to not to go to heaven, to be with him, not because I was afraid of going to hell. So anyway, Tim and I and Doug Macy, another good brother, decided we were going to go to one of the retreats they have in Colorado. And we went to the retreat. Mind-blowing. 300 men, all of the same mindset of wanting to love God and wanting to know how to love God. Anyway, there was one session we had where John said, I want you to go out. You have 3 hours. You can't talk to anybody. He said the only person you can talk to is God. And I want you to go find us a place, get comfortable, and ask God what he thinks of you, and ask God, what is your new name? And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about, John? Come on. But anyway, I did it, and not expecting anything great or fantastic to happen. I actually there's this chuck wagon there, it's like a decorative piece. So I went to the chuck wagon because it was close to the doors to the mess hall. And I figured, yeah, at least I'll be good there. I'll be good for dinner. I'll be good in, one of the first in line. And I went there and I sat, I was leaning against the wheel of this chuck wagon, and I said, God, what do you think of me? Who am I? What am I to you? And immediately God said, you're my coach. You're to coach other men. You're to try to help other men you'd find out how to love and have a relationship with me. And I just said, dude, wow. And I don't mean disrespect saying dude to God, but uh, it was amazing. 3 hours, we had 3 hours to be quiet and not speak. And 2 minutes into this thing, I was bursting with excitement. I wanted to share it with somebody and I couldn't. And then I realized that I'm crying uncontrollably. And guys are walking by, and you would think guys would look at me and say, look at this grown man crying and just kind of laugh or something. But these guys would walk by, see me crying, and just kind of nod like, yeah, he got it. And I did. I got it. And that changed my life. That was the beginning of my life. Because everything after that has been for God. And it's amazing. I can't tell you the changes that happened in me. One time, I was actually serving as an elder at the time in the church, and Tim came up to me and he says, it's time for me to go on my annual vacation. Every year he goes on the same vacation. And he goes, I need somebody to preach. And I said, okay, I can help you find people. I said, we have Sean, and I said, we could always reach out to our sister churches and see if they have any students that want to preach. And Tim said, no, that's not what I meant. He goes, I want you to preach. And I just about threw up. I said, what are you talking about? I can't preach. I said, first of all, I'm not trained. And he goes, you've been trained by the best. And that kind of struck a chord with me. So I agreed to preach. I prayed long and hard about it. At the time, I was working an hour from home. So I had great prayer time on the 10 freeway in Los Angeles. And if you guys don't know the 10 freeway, you rush hour, you pray on that freeway anyway. But one day I just asked God, I said, God, I don't have the words. I don't know how to speak to people. I don't know what I can do. The words I don't have the words to bring glory to your name. And out of the blue I heard, you remember Moses? And I'm sitting there going, first of all, I am not nowhere near close to Moses, except for the fact that we don't like to speak, or I couldn't speak. But I agreed. I did it. And something lit a fire in me. I really felt like I was doing what God wanted me to do. Not as a vocation or as a job, although I probably would have done that if I had the opportunity. But it just lit a fire in me. And my first sermon, although to me it seemed like it was hours long, probably was about 18 minutes. And one of the things I learned from Eldridge in his teaching is how to use movies, to show connections with God. So I did that, and it worked, and I enjoyed it. And ever since then, I've had that. I actually went to a training course to become what was called a commissioned pastor in our denomination. And Tim and I, these are, I'm going to give you like a little preview for other episodes. Tim and I and other guys, we went to 3 or 4 Wild at Hearts meetings or weekends, and then we hooked up with a gentleman by the name of Randy Simons. And Randy, if you hear this, give me a call. I've been trying to find you. We went to 4 or 5 Horizon Quest retreats. And each time I went, my relationship with God grew deeper and deeper. But that's for another story. I've talked too much right now. I hope if nothing else, you can understand where I come from. And I hopefully some of you guys are out there thinking the same thing. How do I love God, and how do I get that relationship with Him? So drop me a line if you enjoyed it. Drop me a line if you didn't. I'll take criticism. Tell me what I'm doing wrong and how I can go do it better. All right, but again, this is Put Shramik. This is episode 1 of Around the Fire Pit, and I look forward to talking to you again. Take care.